So it's a whole different world out there. Telemedicine, telehealth, virtual doctors. And tell us a lot more about this. The big guns from Polycom, Mr. Ron Emerson and Mr. Yugal Sharma. Welcome, gentlemen. Welcome to the next session. Welcome. Again, I think I should say, right? Okay, yeah. Well, I'll start with you. Why even the need for something like this? This is a great amount of technology being put into something that doesn't come as your first point of focus when you're talking about video conferencing or telepresence. Medicine seems to be a bit of a jump. So where did this whole thing evolve from?
Yes, it's really driven by what the needs are in any given environment. When we look at healthcare today, we have a healthcare provider shortage. We have a maldistribution of those specialist providers in the larger urban centers.
Okay.
We have rural populations that basically have no access to care. So how can we leverage this sort of technology to cause efficiencies in the system, but also increase access to care to those who need it the most?
Okay. What about the Indian context? It seems far more relevant here for two spectrums. We're short on doctors, yet we are great in terms of actual medical tourism that is really up and about because we are inexpensive. So in that whole cohesive system of Indian medicine, how does this fit in?
Yeah, Rajiv, absolutely. I think you are spot on. Actually, when you do an analysis of the country's overall dynamics, I think to every citizen's mind, health and education top in terms of our top of mind recall, in terms of the governments looking at the citizens. So I believe that the current situation of 75% of the doctors or the professional expertise are available in the top 8 metros.
Yeah, it's all an urban trend, right?
It's all urban-rural disconnect. And I believe that currently we are there at the telemedicine level, and with technologies that Ron is going to share today, we will leapfrog and cover much fast the gap that is there between telemedicine and telehealth in the coming years. That we will see.
So what we're talking about, let's actually go out there and show everybody. Let's give them a real viewpoint on what we're talking about. When we come back, we'll talk about some of the things we saw in this film. So what is it when we say virtual doctors, telemedicine? Why is it so relevant today? And what's the technology behind it? Let's take a look.
Polycom has a range of products that can assist the doctors and patients, even when they're not in the same location.
Hi, I have a lot of irritation in my eyes and a lot of discomfort and pain. That's a problem which I've been facing for quite some time.
One of the big advantages of these products is that, apart from assuring medical care to the patients, it is also a low-cost way of providing best health care. First up is the AMD 2500. It is general examination camera that can help in diagnosis and treatment. The camera can focus on a specific ailing part of the body like the eye.
Can you try this similarly on the right eye as well?
It then records the particular area in real time and transmits the image to the doctor through teleconference. The doctor can then use these images to diagnose the problem immediately.
I will suggest you to wash say 3-4 times in a day with cold water, and I will also advise you to use eye drop called eye tone.
The camera has multiple features like power zoom, autofocus, freeze frame. It also gives accurate colors and eliminates surface skin reflection. This allows the camera to see through the epidermal layers.
Yeah, hi doctor. I'm not feeling well since some days. I have a severe headache and cold, cough.
Okay, so Vishal, how long you are having this problem?
More than couple of days now.
No problem. We'll just examine and we'll find it out.
The AMD 3700 telephonic stethoscope promises to use low data bandwidth and high performance. Each model can operate either on transmit or receive mode. It has a detachable headset and chest piece assembly. Bell position has bandwidth of 20 Hz that can enhance low frequencies and emphasize heartbeats.
Yeah, Vishal, can you breathe a little bit deep? Yes.
diaphragm position can extend to high frequencies of 1400 Hz and can emphasize pulmonary sounds. The patients can be diagnosed with a real-time video through high-definition teleconferencing. It has the option to store and forward data capture and also collect patient information. It can be merged into a database, pointed or stored in patient's medical record. Telemedicine is now able to provide both the patient on one end and the physician at the other a new level of service, anywhere, anytime.
Thank you, doctor.
You're welcome.
So we've seen some startling stuff right there. We've seen, doctors that are nowhere near the patient in terms of giving a diagnosis. Somebody else is taking some parts of the diagnostic procedure. But what has Polycom got to do with health? And take us through this entire thing. Polycom's role in this? Are you making all the equipment that is also being used by the doctors? Is it only the telepresence part of it? Just take us through the entire process of what we just saw right now.
Sure. When you look at telemedicine in general, Polycom, our key responsibility is we actually provide the conduit for healthcare professionals from a telehealth perspective to connect from a distance.
Okay.
And of course, the premise of all this is that it's more efficient to move information than it is to move people.
Okay.
And so by that, Polycom produces, we develop, we're a leader in the space as far as the development of video technology through basic technologies all the way up through the very, very high level telepresence solutions, including high definition. But we actually work with closers. All of our technology is standards based because what's important is that where we're at today, when you look at technology, is from a clinical perspective to assess from a distance, it's not just the ability to have the video. The video is a key component and we can provide a very high level of assessment. But what's also important is that when providers need to provide a higher level of diagnostic assessment, they can use what are called medical peripheral devices. And we
this is standard equipment that you and your partners are developing, but you're making sure that everything that is coming from there is digitized and can actually be taken forward and can be sent out to wherever in the world it needs to. Is that a pretty okay description of what you're
That's a very good description. You know, what telemedicine does is it breaks down the geographical barriers. So regardless if the doctor is in Delhi and the patient is in a rural village, or if the patient is in halfway around the world, we can still provide that same quality.
Okay, but can you give me a few examples of what kind of things it can do? Because, you know, usually whenever we're having these conversations, it's all about the future. Now, the great part is we're seeing this happening right now. So give me a few real-life, real-world examples of where this can be a brilliant and revolutionary product to bring in.
Definitely, definitely. When we look at where we're at now in telehealth on a global perspective and where it's gone, currently we are using telemedicine for a variety of applications. As I said, with Polycom, we have the live video connection with the ability to connect in medical devices where a patient could be 500 kilometers from the doctor. We could look at the ear, and the doctor would see the ear blown up on their screen in real time. We could look down the throat with a laryngoscope. We could look at if they had a lesion, we could use a dermoscope. We can do that now. But a key component is where is the future and where are things going? As we look at the challenge we talked about earlier, we see large pushes in certain areas. First of all, as we look at futuristic, we have something which are called virtual ICUs, virtual intensive care units, where you can have an intensivist, which is a doctor who works on people that are very, very ill, and they literally can be like in a box, in a room. They can have telemetry where they can look at a heart. They can basically have biometric data where it's so sensitive they can even monitor the urine output of patients in their bed. So one intensivist could be monitoring 12 different hospitals' intensive care units. And then you could connect over video using our solution. So it's how do we leverage those resources? It's a very high level, sophisticated. Robotics. We're starting to see the use of surgeons actually using robotics and provide surgeries from a distance.
Is the technology now up to the mark? Because we're really talking about real life diagnosis. We're talking about critical health situations. The skepticism used to be earlier that the technology may mislead the doctor into making a wrong diagnosis. Have we reached that critical phase of technology?
Yeah, we are there as we speak today, because with the evolution of the expertise available from the Western world, today we have applications running across the country in some islands of excellence, I would say, like Apollo and different other hospital chains run it across. And with the advent of connectivity reaching different villages and districts of a country, and high definition on the other side in terms of evolution of video conferencing standards, it's very much as possible, as you said.
We have studies after studies, and this has been going on for 10 years, that shows that patient satisfaction is always in the high 90th percentiles. We also have studies where, for general practitioner care, where we would have patients over a 2-year period, 880 patients, that would actually be seen over telemedicine from their GP, their general practitioner. Right. The other group would walk in and they would see their general practitioner in person.
All right.
The satisfactions between those two groups over a 2-year period of time was exactly the same. So the group that just received over telemedicine was just as happy as the group that received.
But would this translate to India? You know, there's a personability between going to a doctor, talking to him and patting your hand and saying you'll be fine versus something like this. So does this translate to India?
Yeah, there is a socio-cultural barrier, so as to speak for, but I believe that is getting removed slowly. And how it is happening is because the economic factor of cost is making the Indian citizens, which are very, very, I would say, understanding the benefits very fast. It will take up fast. So we are moving.
So the money is changing the mind, right?
Hopefully it should, yeah, it should, yes.
Okay, I have a last question for you, and it is always my favorite question on this show. Take us through the future.
The future and the use of technology. The real high end of it is when we look at telemedicine, and then the part of the future is we're even getting to the point where there's development going on where you can have like a suit, like a body suit, and you can actually from one end where you can basically touch something and you could feel something. So if there was a mass, let's say on someone's shoulder here, that when you actually touch a certain replica on this side, you would be able to sort of palpate the mass.
So even the touch and feel could get translated over?
Yes, these things are in the beginning. These things are not even a little bit farther than beginning. These things are actually in development, and that's really the next edge. Of course, then we also have, you know, as we've heard of like things like Da Vinci, which are the operating rooms from a distance and those type of things.
This is a very rosy picture. It's looking very vivid, very interesting, very dynamic, and I think really, if there's one part of the world that really needs changing, it was always health and medicine, and I think this may be the way forward. Thank you very much. Fantastic talking to you. Thank you so much. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.